Hello, my wonderful people. Yes, and subscribers all over the world. Greetings to you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. This very Monday morning, I wish us a very prosperous new week and new month ahead. My prayers is that this month of July shall mark the beginning of new things in our lives. So, in all endeavors, in all our struggles to make an ends meet, it shall never be in vain. And Nigeria will never happen to anyone listening to me, because Nigeria has become a curse to people. Anybody that wants to curse you now, they will tell you, may Nigeria happen to you. So my prayer is that to all my fans out there, my viewers, my subscribers, my listeners, my commentators, all of honor, may Nigeria never happen to any of you out there, and so shall it be. So anywhere where you do, make it just shout a mighty amen. Drop it at the comment section as we proceed with this early Monday morning's broadcast. Hear the headline. As we proceed, do not forget to subscribe, like, and also share. Nigeria, a stage where criminality thrives and grows exponentially. Exponentially. Yes, true. Nigeria is a place where people who complain about criminals are being arrested, while the criminals are being guided by the law. In other words, freedom fighters are the ones that suffers. Those ones who make the law that they don't obey, who made the law that force people to agitate for freedom, are the ones being protected, while the ones self-determination is allowed in our constitution and also in the constitution of the United Nations, which Nigeria is a signatory to. But today, the reverse is the case. And though the so-called United Nations, ECOWAS, Commonwealth, and the rest of them, everybody was silent. Seeing the ill-treatment, marginalization, and the massacre of Biafrans on daily basis, no one says anything. When you complain about their government, they will come for you. See what happened in, what do they call it, either Mozambique or whatever. Sorry, Burkina Faso. When the military revolts because of the ill-treatment that they are getting from their so-called democratic elected leaders. But when they are passing through a lot, the so-called Commonwealth or ECOWAS or African Union didn't say anything. Every day they are supporting their own, because all of them have been in a group whereby they will go there, that their secret nonsense group, and discuss on how they are going to be dealing with their citizens. Because when they are dealing with the citizens, no one will talk. But when the military revolts in that very country, that is when ECOWAS and African Union said they want to sanction them and this and that. And I was looking at them and said, look at these people. So it is good for the government to be treating the people bad. But when the people revolt, or the military said enough is enough, that my people cannot continue living in darkness and in poverty, then that is when the so-called European Union and the ECOWAS will rise. Now God, now go punish all of us now. You hear me? So now Ogu lo mapai, all the ECOWAS and African Union that cannot see what is happening in Biafra today, that cannot see the ill treatment the Biafra are getting from the so-called Nigerian government, that have kept mute all this while Martin Nnamdi Kanu is being held in detention. The only thing we get is the so-called nonsense British High Commissioner in Nigeria, Montgomery, coming to make a deal with the so-called Ohaneze Ndi Beribe, so that they will enslave us for another 100 and something years. That is exactly what they did in 1914. The amalgamation of 1914 have never been supported, have never been, even the consent of the indigenous people of Biafra have not been said before that amalgamation, which amalgamated the North and the South. Then use Fulani as the one they pass power to, because they have said all those ones, they are just like mumu like cow. So they can easily be controlled. They have ascertained the brains of the southeast and the south, and know that, my dear, these people, they have something upstairs. Then they use mumu cows. Now cow they rule Nigeria as I'm talking to you. Leave that man that is there. Leave that person that is there. The person that is ruling is the vice and the cabals, both in Sokoto Caliphate and in Asorok. We know about all these things, but we decide to keep calm. But does not take our silence for granted. So please, tighten your seatbelt. We are about to move. I'm very, very angry in my spirit this morning. In every country of this world, criminality is seen as a very serious offense that remains punishable under relative laws of each country. These laws are made as a deterrent factor to curtail all forms of criminalities, thereby maintaining peace and order among the citizens living in the country. And once any peace and tranquility order is breached, it is said that the law has been violated and the perpetrators, such criminals elements, who are liable to be arrested, investigated, prosecuted, if guilty, as accused, be charged to face the penalty of their crimes as stipulated by the law of every country. But in Nigeria, the reverse is the case. Criminality varies in forms of vandalism, terrorism, corruption, murder, kidnapping, militancy, armed robbery, oil thefts, political thuggery, cyber fraud, genocide, among others. These offenses are designated as grievous with relative penalties and punishments for criminals who violate their laws in a state. Also, criminal activities are forbidden by various religious, social, cultural, and ethical organizations. But in Nigeria, the reverse is the case. In modern statehood, criminality is prevented and checkmated under certain laws enacted by a country or a group of countries and enshrined in various explicit documents such as constitutions, acts, conventions, resolutions, etc., binding on all citizens on member states of the group. The maintenance of law in a given state is attributed to the supremacy of the rule of law, and this fosters relative peace and order among the citizens within the said country. Regrettably, in Nigeria, criminality is not taken as severe and grievous as required, nor punishable as stipulated by the laws. Nigeria have maintained an outstanding popularity among nations known for their high rates of criminality and corruption in the world. A recent report by the Transparency Index on its annual Corruption Perception Index of 2022 edition had Nigeria cruising on a lowly 150 out of 180 positions we have in the world. Nigeria ranked 150 among the most corrupted nations and most corrupted politicians. The above is quite conspicuous testimony to the numerous unending cycle of criminal activities perpetrated in Nigeria by individual actors and government officials. Recall that on the 19th June of 2021, the Buhari-led Nigeria government, in collaboration with its Kenyan counterpart and also with the UK counterpart as well, committed an international crime of extraordinary rendition against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, a British citizen and the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB movement, which was renditioned from Kenya to Nigeria. Till date, the law have not taken its full course. Instead, they are praising Nigeria and also praising Buhari for all their ill treatment on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. This incident bears with it severe consequences on both countries and actors involved. Having violated the extradition laws, received little or no reprimand from the international community. Rather, the perpetrators of this international crime have not only retained their political posts and careers, but receiving awards and help from global and even protected by law enforcement operatives. Afterwards, this evokes an obvious collusion wrapped up by the global silence. Yes, the person who arrested Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, a British citizen who traveled with a UK passport, is now resting in that same UK, and the UK government is even the one protecting him. And you tell me the UK hand is not among those who sold Mazi Nnamdi Kanu out? My brother, we the Biafrans should do what? We should count every other person that we are accusing on this very matter. We should hold Nigerian, Kenya, and the UK government responsible for whatever that happened to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. But UK is among the ones who sold Mazi Nnamdi Kanu out to the Nigerian government. Moreover, the latest display of shenanigans by the criminal, Igbophobic, hungry oil pipeline guard contract solicitor in Abuja further commend the notion of the tendencies and gravitations towards criminality and criminal elements by successive Nigerian administrations. These factors consequently amplify the assertions of the IPOB leader during his broadcast on Radio Biafra, where he states that in Nigeria, if you are not a criminal, you don't have a place in the government. The variety of the above statements have been evidentially proven to all and sundry with the recent occurrence of events. Nigeria government's glorification and reservation for crime syndicates and characters are untampered, provided that these criminals brings in befitting proceeds. Nigeria's redemption or salvation is quite unachievable. The corruption trajectory course it plies is simply irreversible. Hence, the only plausible solution is the support and demand for a referendum to determine and redefine the state of affairs within it. Anything less than this will only be futile in the fullness of time, according to the news writer. And this news is written to us by Kelechi Chukwueze Augustine, and it was being edited by Enenyenwite Yabonyoku Ikechukwu for the Family Writers Association or Family Writers Press International of Nigeria. So, my wonderful people, and I don't hear them, this one is coming from the horse's mouth. It's only in Nigeria that the criminality is being rewarded, while innocence is being taxed criminals. Because if not so, tell me the reason why a criminal, a pipeline vandals, oil theft, a militant, we go to our own, they are so-called Asorok, not our own, they are so-called Asorok, and be making some derogatory statements. Nobody calls him to order. Charlie Boy came the other day and hold Nigerian youths accountable. Look at what is happening in France. And the same people who is profiling the Igbos are the one that come out and said, oh, Charlie Boy have committed offense that you got him arrested. And I asked, arrested for what? Arrested for speaking the truth. Arrested for calling the youths that look at their mates, their age mates out there in France. They are protesting over just a killing of one single individual by a policeman, a 17-year-old boy. But in Nigeria, police kill our people on daily basis. Look at what happened in Ekpoma. A police people get a citizen of the country, not a criminal, tie his hands and legs, keep him and use the car to crush him. Youths are there taking video. Nobody revolt against it. And you tell me that Nigerian youths, I wonder why. That is why Buhari called them lazy youths. That is what we have in Nigeria. The only thing they know how to do is just to look for anything drinkable and smokable. Any enhancing tablet or medicine that is used for knacking, you call Nigerian youths, they will give you the address of where it is being sold. Or they will even sell it to you. That's the only thing they pass on. I wonder why the government, the old fools in our government offices, look at them and shake their head and said, look at our lazy youths. And that is the simple truth. But notwithstanding that same lazy youth revolted against revolution now in 2020, October 20, what they met is the Waterloo of losing over 100 to 200 innocent citizens who went out there to protest for police brutality. What did the federal government do? Till today, nothing. The international community, till today, nothing. The impunity being happening in Nigeria is being sponsored from abroad. That is why they cannot say anything or do anything. Quote me wrong, and I will tell you the reasons. 2023 election, it is preposterous and unconscionable. Presidency fires European Union. I know they will attack. This one is Alake. The Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led administration has rejected the European Union's conclusion on the 2023 general elections. Nigerian news record that European Union election observation mission had criticized the handling of the 2023 Nigerian general elections, it is said the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) failed to deliver on its promise of a transparent and inclusive democratic process. The European Union pointed to gaps in law and electoral administrative that negatively affected the quality and inclusiveness of the elections and undermined trust in the INEC. According to the European Union's Election Observer Mission Finance report, public faith in INEC was severely dented during the presidential election and was not rebuilt in subsequent state levels election. Reactions in a statement on Sunday, the special advisor to the president, special duties, communications and strategy, Dele Alake, described the report as preposterous and unconscionable. He stated that the government is aware of the mechanizations of the European Union to sustain its unfounded bias and claims on election outcomes. His statement read, "Sometimes in May, we alerted the nation through a press statement to the plan by a continental multilateral institution to discredit the 2023 general elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission. The main target was the presidential election, clearly and fairly won by the then candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. While we did not mention the name of the organization in the said statement, we made it abundantly clear to Nigerians how this foreign institution have been unrelenting in its assault on the credibility of the election process, the sovereignty of our country, and on our ability as a people to organize ourselves. We find it preposterous and unconscionable that in this day and age, any foreign organization or whatsoever who can continue to insist on its own yardstick and assessment as the only way to determine the credibility and the transparency of our elections. Now that the organization has submitted what it claimed to be its final report on the election, we can now categorically let Nigerians and the entire world know that we were not aware of any mechanization of the European Union to sustain its largely unfounded bias and claims on the election outcomes. For emphasis, we want to reiterate that the 2023 general elections, most especially the presidential elections won by Tinubu and All Progressive Congress, were credible, peaceful, free and fair, and the best organized general elections in Nigeria since 1999. There is no substantial evidence provided by the European Union or any foreign and local organization that is visible enough to impede the integrity of the 2023 election outcomes. It is worth restating that the limitations of European Union final assessment and conclusion on our elections was made very bare on the text of the press conference addressed by the head of its National Electoral Observer Mission, Barry Andrews, while addressing journalists in Abuja on the so-called final report. Andrews noted that European Union Election Observer Mission monitored the pre-election and post-election process in Nigeria from January 11 to April 11, 2023 as an INEC-accredited election monitoring group. Within this period, European Union Election Observer Ministry observed the election through 11 Abuja-based analysts and 40 election observers spread across 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. With the level of personnel deployed, which was barely an average of one person per state, we wonder how European Union independently monitored the election in over 176,000 polling units across Nigeria. We would like to know and even ask European Union how it reached the conclusion in the submitted final report with very limited coverage of the election by their observers, who without doubt relied more on rumors, hearsay, cocktails of prejudice, and uninformed social media commentaries and opposition talking heads. We are convinced that the European Union Election Observer Ministry called final report on our recent elections is a product of poorly done desk job that relied heavily on few instances of ski matches in less than 1,000 polling units out of over 176,000 where Nigerians voted on election day. We have many reasons to believe the jaundiced report, based on the views of fewer than 50 observers was to merely sustain the same premature the unitary stance contained in European Union's preliminary report released on March of the same election day. So my wonderful people, I don't hear them how they are defending what is not defendable. We know about this even right from before the election started or before the day of election. That is how they keep suspending their principal not appear before any media house. And at the end of the day, what happens? They say he won the election. So that is it. You are useless Nigerian. Charlie Boy reacts to call for his arrest over the comment he made some couple of days ago. Controversial Nigerian singer Charles Oputa, popularly known as Charlie Boy, has reacted to call for his arrest over his recent comment. Nigeria News reported that in a post via Instagram on Saturday, the political activist, cum actor, called on exceptional Nigerian youth to revolt against Nigeria. Charlie Boy took his cue from the unrest in France, where there have been some days of riot following the killing of a 17-year-old boy by a policeman. Reacting to this, Bayononga in a post via his Twitter page averred that it is irresponsible for the Charlie Boy to advise youth to engage in violence. He added that the security agencies should call the singer to order with immediate effect. Similarly, some other Nigerians took to the microblogging platform Twitter to call for the singer's arrest for attempting to incite civil unrest. However, reacting via his Twitter page on Sunday, Charlie Boy mocked those calling for his arrest, stating that the Department of State Service DSS cannot arrest criminals, but easier for them to arrest those who speak against criminals. He wrote, "Now only me, just the laugh as you guys, the para on top my post. People, can't they even call for my arrest? See monkeys. DSS can't arrest criminals but can arrest people who speak against criminals. You are a useless Nigerian," according to Charlie Boy, Charles Oputa. Because I charge the youth of Nigeria to take their destiny in their hands and bring down a criminal enterprise. Some one person come the form gangster on top my post or on top my matter, according to Charles Oputa, popularly known as Charlie Boy, the area father. We are moving forward, my wonderful people. Please, you people should not get tired of listening to me. Subsidy removal, another palliative. No, another what do they call it? Another crime on its own, because palliative can easily become another subsidy. CDD member Prof. Ibrahim Jimo. A member of the governing body of the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, Professor Jibril Ibrahim, has said the planned palliative by the federal government might end up like the situation with COVID-19 palliatives. There's nothing like palliative in Nigeria, so I don't even know what they're talking about. According to him, the subsidy removal palliative might end up not serving its intended purpose, just like in the case of COVID-19 palliative during the pandemic. Nigeria News report that Ibrahim, while featuring on Arai TV, said the fuel subsidy palliative can on its own become another subsidy regime on its own. Wait and hear how many billions of naira or even trillions they will tell you they spend on this so-called fuel subsidy removal palliative. He said the palliative can easily become another fuel subsidy, and we saw that very clearly during COVID-19, where the Ministry of Disaster Management claimed they were paying billions of naira every month for school feeding, when all schools are even on lockdown. And we knew that schools were closed, children were at home, and when that question was posed, the response was they had traced the people and students, and the question then became, how? Nigeria. We do know that for the fuel subsidy, there has been a significant attempt to identify and map the poor in this country. This has been going on over the last decade. They do have a list of very poor families. There is a history of conditional grant supports to families. I believe that when the audit is done on the sum of the palliative paid during COVID-19, it will be discovered that it is one of the greatest robberies in the history of this country. So that is the problem with subsidy palliative as well. They call that the government of former President Buhari had said it has secured a sum of $800 million from the World Bank as part of its post-subsidy palliative plans. Then the question is, where is this money? It has promised to pay 5,000 naira to 10 million poor households for 6 months as a palliative for removing the petrol subsidy after June. And I asked, we have a poverty index that rises now. As I'm talking to you now, we have over 137 million Nigerians that is living in multidimensional poverty. And you want to pay just 10 million people 5,000 naira for 6 months. How can that solve their problems? And how can that contribute to the pains people are passing through due to this nonsense government that come in place? Anyway, let us continue. Let us not judge a book by its cover. And another section we have here, a government kidnap a popular businessman. All that happened in Imo State. A popular businessman identified as John Ugoji has been abducted by some unknown gunmen in Imo State. Nigerians learned that Ugoji, the owner of Johnny Supermarket and Pharmacy, located at the Ikenebu layout in Owerri, was kidnapped on Friday evening between 10 and 11 p.m. while he was driving his SUV home. Ugoji reportedly resisted abduction, which warranted the government to shoot sporadically in the air, causing apprehension and scaring people away. A source who spoke with Daily Post said the unknown gunmen are yet to contact the family members for any ransom. The source said Ugoji had resisted being kidnapped, which prompted the bandits to shoot erratically into the air. The event occurred between 10 and 11 p.m. while he was driving his SUV home. He was approached at his drugstore, but when one of his car's tires got stuck in a gutter, he attempted to run from the gunmen. They then dragged him out of his car, shoved him into theirs, and speed off to an unidentified location. They arrived in 2 cars. Hey, wow, big hit, you. The kidnappers have not yet made contact with the family members. We hope that the kidnappers will spare his life and let him return home unharmed. Confirming the incident, the Imo State Police spokesperson Henry Okoye said a distress call was received from an eyewitness at the popular Ikenebu layout and rushed to the scene, but the unknown gunmen had already escaped. Okoye said operatives of the anti-kidnapping squad were swiftly marshaled to the scene, but unfortunately, the hoodlums had already escaped with the unsuspecting victim, highly suspected to be one John Ugoji, male. Before the arrival of the police operatives, a vehicle suspected to be that of the victim was recovered at the station. The victim's family is yet to make an official report to the police. However, discreet investigations are ongoing for possible rescue of the kidnapped victims as well as the arrest of his kidnappers. Tension in Enugu as soldiers and vigilantes engage in gun battle. Soldiers attached to the 2 Division of the Nigerian Army, Enugu State, engaged in a fierce gun battle with a neighborhood watch group in a K community, Udi, local government area of the state. Nigerians learned that a man and his wife were allegedly shot dead, while one of the members, identified as Chinedu Okoro, had his penis completely shattered. Other members of the local security network who survived the attack are reportedly in critical condition in an undisclosed hospital. The Assistant Chief Security Officer of AK Security Neighborhood Vigilante Watch, Emeka Anigbo, was also sustained severe gunshot injuries. In an interview with journalists, said the incident happened on Thursday night when they were at the 9th Mile corner. Anigbo said they had gone to facilitate with their colleagues who were being inaugurated as neighborhood watch members when they received a distress call that armed robbers blocked the major road leading to the popular Catholic Church prayer center, Ugudinso, and Eke from Ama breweries. According to him, on receiving the call, they abandoned the food and drinks they were